something, or you may be able to unmute yourself if you have a question. And I'm gonna pull up that image again of the, let's see, ghee lamp. So this is a traditional, this is my hands actually. This is from mine and Michael's wedding day in the morning. This is a traditional Indian ghee lamp. Serene's smiling. She's seen many of these in India. She maybe you even make them sometimes on your own. So my grandmother made this ghee the morning of our wedding, and then we had this flame. And this is a, this kind of a lamp is used for ritual. And I'm using the ghee flame or the ghee lamp, it's called, as a metaphor for the concept of Soma and Agni. And I'm going to spend some time today in this class really introducing these two, what I'm calling cosmic consorts, these two main principles of existence. And then we'll spend other days looking more explicitly at how those two principles relate to yoga practice and life itself. So I'll start with this metaphor of the ghee lamp. So Soma is all in existence, everything in manifestation that nourishes, in the way that ghee is nourishing to the body, or ghee in the case of a ghee lamp nourishes the fire, nourishes the flame. Soma is everything that exists that is nourishing. And if you think about ghee, everything that you can think of having to do with ghee will give you information about the nature of Soma, or the principle of Soma. So ghee is soft, rich, nourishing, liquidous, smooth, heavy in nature. Okay, and in terms of the ghee lamp, if you're looking at this image here, the ghee actually nourishes the flame. It is the fuel for the flame. Without the ghee, there could not be a flame. And it is like this in life. Without nourishment of Soma, there can be no Agni. You cannot have fire without fuel. And we'll look at what that means as we move forward in terms of our lives and our yoga practice. The other thing to notice about this image is the size of the ghee relative to the size of the flame. What we have here is mostly ghee and a small flame. And as we move through this course, you'll see that that's what we're looking for in life and in yoga practice: more Soma, which sustains a refined amount of fire. Too much fire, and what happens to the Soma? Of course, it all burns up, okay? And slowly what happens, if you've ever, well, with any candle, so the wax could also be a Soma relative to the flame of a candle, but ghee is such a better Soma than wax, okay? So as the flame slowly burns, the Soma slowly diminishes over time. And then what we do if we're doing a ghee lamp is we refill the ghee so that we always have more Soma than Agni or fire. Okay, so the Soma is that which nourishes. The Agni, the fire, the flame here in this image, is that which burns, that which alights or lights. It points up, so it is that which aspires, as opposed to the ghee, which is that which sustains. Without the flame, just like without the fuel of the ghee, there would be no flame. If there were no flame, the ghee becomes just a heavy, dense gunk. Right? But as the light is enlivened here, the ghee becomes this liquidous, glowing, luminous substance, which is what we want the Soma to be. And we'll keep looking at this. Okay, so this is our metaphor to keep coming back to through this course, is the ghee lamp as a metaphor for, it's not only a metaphor for Soma and Agni, it literally is Soma and Agni incarnate. The Soma here contains the fire. And the fire continues to make the Soma something which is luminous and digestible, not something which is heavy and dense and not able to be absorbed by the senses. Okay, so any questions? You can raise a hand. If you can figure out unmuting yourself, you can do that if you have a question. Okay. All right, so now I'm not sure how many of you were able to pull up your, no, that's not the one I want to share, handouts, but I'm going to pull them up. So that we can look at this list here. Ah, there it is. Okay, there we go. You all can see this list? Okay, so we're just gonna go through this list so you can see how Agni and Soma are consorts. Better than saying that they're opposing, because they rest upon each other in the way that the ghee and the flame rest upon each other. So in that way, they're consorts. They rest upon one another, all right? So Agni on the left, but if this piece of paper were a person, then Agni would be the right side of the person, if that makes sense. And the Agni is actually the right side of the body, and the Soma is the left side of the body. So flipped in your handout. But Agni on the one side and Soma on the other. We're just going to go back and forth. So Agni is the sun, and the Soma is the moon. In other words, the sun is a form of fire, and the moon is a form of Soma. It's not that they are metaphors, they are forms of, okay? And that's true of all of these things on the list. They're not metaphors, they are forms of these cosmic principles. So the right is the Agni, the left is the Soma, as I said. Daytime is Agni, nighttime is Soma. What happens during the day? We're busy, we're active, we're running around, we're engaging in life, we're earning money or taking care of families or fixing the house. All of those are Agni activities. We're talking, we're doing. All of that is Agni, and that is what the day is built of. Day is for activity. Activity is Agni. Daytime is Agni. The sun is out during the day. See how this all falls under the category of Agni. Soma, the moon is out at night. The nighttime is the time of Soma. The moon is a form of Soma. And ideally, what are we doing at night? Resting, being nourished by sleep, going in possibly to the deep state of sleep in which body activity resolves completely, mind activity resolves completely. Your sense of who you are, called the ahankara, the I maker in Sanskrit, that sense resolves completely. You are in a complete Soma state when you get into a deep sleep, which is why deep sleep is so very important. It's because it's the time in which you are gathering the Soma. Why? Because that Soma that you gather at night during sleep becomes the fuel for all of the Agni, the activities of the day. Okay? So the left side of the body is Soma, the right side of the body is Agni. And if you know Ida Pingala Nadis, then you know that already. In the subtle level of the body as well as the more gross level of the physiology, left side we consider the feminine, the more passive, the more meditative. All of that is Soma. The right side, the more masculine, active, sometimes agitated, competitive. Right side is Agni. Your exhalation, breathing out, which is also called Udana Prana, that is Agni. Every time you exhale, that is an Agni activity. You are burning up and letting go. That is what fire does. Fire resolves. Okay, and so the upward and outward breath is Agni. The inward and downward breath, or what's called prana, is Soma. The in breath, you take in breath, is nourishing to the body. So taking in the breath, nourishment, Soma. Exhaling, purifying, letting it out, Agni. Agni burns, Soma nourishes. And we're going to be working with the breath and the two directions of the breath with the practices that we do during this course. So that one is important. Agni is hot, obviously. Soma is cool in nature. Agni is the Pingala Nadi, the right Nadi. Soma is the Ida Nadi, the left Nadi. Agni is movement. Soma, stillness. In terms of the body, you can start thinking about your spinal release yoga practice. The Agni is the tailbone, the pelvis in general, and the navel. So the lower portion of the spine is the fire. And this is where Kundalini Shakti rests, which is a fiery energy. And the seats of Soma are the head in general, the mind specifically. The mind is considered a form of Soma. Sometimes the mind in Sanskrit is literally called Soma. Soma is one of the names of the mind in Sanskrit. And the heart is a seat of Soma. So you can see the upper portion of the body, the upper portion of the spine is a seat of Soma. Fire is purification. Soma is nourishment. Fire is the sense of dissatisfaction and desire. And Soma is the sense of satisfaction and contentment. So when we feel dissatisfied, do we do nothing or do we do something? Generally, when the mind and body are dissatisfied or feeling a lack, that moves us, that kindles desire, and it gets us to move. Think of hunger. If you're hungry, you get up. The lack of nourishment causes a desire for nourishment, and then that causes movement. That's all Agni. Dissatisfaction or a sense of lack and desire, which fuels activity, is fire. A sense of satisfaction, deep contentment. Do you move when you feel satisfied and content? Or do you stay still? Okay, Soma, stillness, satisfaction, sleep. You'll see I started noticing the more I teach Soma, the more so many S words are Soma things, okay? Pain versus pleasure, the bouncing back and forth that we do in life, if you want to use Sanskrit words, raga and dvesha, desire and aversion, the pain-pleasure continuum, which drives everything we do, is Agni. I go for what I want and I run away from what I don't want. That is what all of the activity of life amongst normals, non-spiritual aspirants, okay? All of the activity of life, which is Agni, is driven by this bouncing back and forth or running towards what I want and running away from what I don't want. Bliss, which is beyond that spectrum of like and don't like, bliss, what we can also call the sense of satisfaction and contentment, is Soma. In a state of bliss, I neither desire something nor am I having an aversion to anything. Agni is activity, Soma is receptivity. Fire is the Agni, the fuel is the Soma. Metabolism, all things that devour, okay? The metabolic processes of nature, including your own devouring, you know, the cellular metabolism, the digestion, all of that is Agni. And sustenance, that which is feeding the metabolism, is Soma. Agni goes up, like Kundalini goes up, like a flame goes up, and Soma pours down. It is downward flowing like a waterfall, or like ghee being poured into a ritual fire, for those of you that have ever attended an Indian Vedic ritual fire. Soma gets poured down like a waterfall, and Agni rises up. Shakti is Agni, and Shiva is Soma. And before anybody freaks out, because I already said the Soma is feminine and the Agni is masculine, and I'll tell a little story about this in a moment, but we say Shakti, or the quality of the dance of incarnation, or the dance of manifestation. That's all movement. That is Agni. Movement is fire. And Shiva represents stillness, beingness, restingness, non-doing. That is Soma. And yet, if we go to the next line down here, Agni is the divine father, and Soma is the divine mother, the nourisher. Okay, so some of you have heard this before, my umbilical cord tree story, because we're so locked in our minds to either or. It's either masculine or feminine. It's either the father or the mother. Well, I was out with a friend and with my kids, and she said, I've got to show you this tree. It's incredible. It's this umbilical cord tree. So we hiked to this tree in Ashland, Oregon, and it's this cedar tree, upward rising tree, that had this one branch coming out the side and going down and then into the earth. This long, skinny branch going down like this. And then out of that sprouted another tree. And she said, look at this. It's an umbilical cord. It's an umbilical cord. It's the divine feminine. Isn't it amazing? And we're going, umbilical cord tree. And then my 5-year-old son said, it's a penis. Okay. So we looked at it and we were like, yeah, it's also a penis. Okay. So it's an umbilical cord and it's a penis. It's the Shakti and it's the divine father. It's Shiva and it's the divine mother on the Soma side. It's both. We have to expand our minds to be able to contain the idea that something is simultaneously Shakti, which is movement and manifestation, and this quality of masculinity, divine masculine, the divine father, while the Soma is both stillness and the divine mother, the feminine nourisher. Okay. In terms of mantra, which I'm hoping we'll get to in our third class, the sound hreem, hreem, hreem is a fire mantra. There are many fire mantras, but this is one major one. If you want to take one fire mantra, if you need to ignite your inner fire, then you can hreem, hreem, hreem. While shreem, shreem, shreem is Soma. So you can take that Soma mantra if you want to increase Soma, or to balance the two, hreem, shreem, hreem, shreem, hreem, shreem. Other mantras are Hamsa, Hamsa for sun, and Soham for the moon. And these two, we're going to use the Soham mantra in particular during this course. Hamsa means I am that. What am I? I am that consciousness. And Soham means that I am. That consciousness I am. And if you look at these two English translations of those mantras, you can see that the phrase I am that is a more proactive recognition of the self as consciousness. And Soham, that I am, is a more passive recognition of the self as consciousness. Same ultimate meaning, but one coming at the meaning in a fiery way and the other coming in a nourishing, passive Soma way. The Kundalini Shakti is fire. If you watched the 3 videos that were part of the previous week's homework, then you heard me talking about this. The Kundalini rises up, burns the karmas, is aspiring upward. It is a fiery process. And so Kundalini Shakti is fire or Agni. And the Sushumna, which is the containing nadi, the containing channel for Kundalini, Sushumna, see another S sound for Soma, Sushumna is the Soma. So the Soma, like the ghee lamp, the Soma is the container and the Kundalini Shakti is the flame. Agni is all outer pursuit. Soma is all inner focus. Agni is all striving, efforting. Soma is all surrendering. Agni is aspiration, and Soma is allowance. And Agni, a form of Agni, is a mountain, right? You see a mountain is that like a flame, aspiring upward, reaching for something. And the Soma is a lake, or all forms of flowing water are forms of Soma. They allow, the water takes the shape of its environment in a passive way, and yet water still has dynamism. It still moves. It just moves in a more passive way. So you can see that both Agni and Soma are dynamic, okay? If we think about Kundalini rising up and Soma nectar pouring down, both have movement, both are dynamic, but the fire aspires upward in a more active way while the Soma pours down like a flow of grace. Less effort involved in that dynamism. And some of you have seen this in Vedic imagery, that the masculine or the Agni is taken as an upward pointing triangle like a mountain, and the feminine is taken as a downward pointing triangle. The Soma is represented in a downward pointing triangle. Like I just described, this aspires up, this flows down. Okay, so Agni and Soma. I'm going to close that. And I'm going to unmute everyone and see if there are any questions. One of you has a little feedback.
Oops.
Okay, I think we're all clear. Any questions? Feedback. Let me see who that is. Barbie, that's your phone. I just muted you. That's your, there was a noise coming from your side, Barbie,
Okay.
so I just muted you.
I'm on the computer too. Can you hear me?
Yeah, that's better. Oh, it's because you have both on. That's why.
Maybe I'll get, did I turn that off?
I just muted one, but I can still hear you through the other, so that's fine.
Okay, I left the phone.
I got you. Any questions? Jody? I can't hear you. You're unmuted, Jody, but I can't hear you. Let's see if I can type something. Can anyone else hear her?
No.
Okay. We can't hear you. You may have to tell the system to allow it to use your microphone. Are you on a computer? Yeah, oh yeah, because you don't have a smartphone. So let me see if I can tell you how to do this. Or you can type.
She could put on if she has a head, like a.
Do you have headphones? She probably doesn't because she doesn't have a smartphone. Do you have headphones?
Yeah, I have some earbuds.
Oh,
Yeah.
we hear you now.
Oh, yeah, we hear.
Hi.
Hi.
Okay. You hear me? Okay. So my question is, are there times when there is Agni and Soma together? So these are what you're describing in that list is like the extreme versions of each. And is there like a middle ground where there are elements of both that create a balanced scenario? And is there a different verbiage for that?
So everything in existence will have elements of both, right? And so you're absolutely right. I'm giving the two sort of extreme, the most pure forms of the two that I could think of for that list to really enliven our understanding of what these two principles are. But most things in life are both. And that's what we're actually going to be looking at in terms of the yoga practice. I'm going to talk about how, for example, the poses that are already familiar to you, like something like a tailbone release pose, has elements of both. It's just that we don't necessarily talk about it in terms of Agni and Soma. But absolutely, most everything has both. Yet you'll see that, here's the thing, if the two are merging perfectly, then we have pure consciousness as it is. then there's no manifestation. So for example, it's described that though I said the heart is the seat of Soma, the heart is also the place where in terms of spiritual process, Agni and Soma merge. And when that happens, then both resolve. Then you don't have this duality. And so let's see, I was drinking a chai before we started, okay? And so the milk is Soma, the tea is Agni, cardamom is Agni, but it's a Soma type of spice. So it's got cooling qualities. Cardamom is known to increase love and joy in the heart. So cardamom is actually a great example. It's a spice that kindles digestion, but it's a cooling Soma, feminine, sweet spice. So that's a place where you would see both, but we would call it more on the Agni side. Everything is going to be at least a little bit more one or the other. Does that help?
Like I'm imagining too, if you had a situation or a conversation or a point of view you had to present or something, that if you had a fiery topic, but you could temper it with Soma language. So there's ways that you could finesse a balance like in every realm.
Absolutely. In fact, I'll give you an example. I was eavesdropping on Michael teaching one of his Vedic astrology students today. And this is something he's going to teach when he co-teaches with me in Portland. He was suggesting that if you are having a conflict with a friend, let's say, or at work, and so it's a combative situation, that's Agni, it needs to be addressed. So you need to kind of go into a kind of a difficult confrontation type of conversation. Then he was saying, do it on a Soma day. Don't do it on an Agni day. Different days of the week are associated with either the sun or the moon. Some of you have already studied this with Michael. And so, for example, Tuesday is a fiery day because it's ruled by Mars. So you wouldn't want to go into a combative conversation on a Tuesday. You would save it for a Monday or a Saturday or one of the more passive moon Soma types of days. It's you're right on target, Jody. Yeah. And this kind of knowledge, we're focusing on yoga because we're the yoga bunch, but this kind of knowledge is so useful for life. And what I'll probably get into more next time because I want to do some poses now. But the reason I'm teaching this is because what I'm witnessing, I was witnessing in myself and in the world and in everyone, is that we're having too much Agni and not enough Soma. So I'm going to be emphasizing the Soma side of things more than the Agni side, though both are important because we have been, as a society, including in the yoga world, we have been burning up our Soma with too much fire, too much aspiration, too much movement, too much desire, burning, burning, burning. And the result is that everyone is exhausted, depleted. You may be seeing what I'm seeing, which is that so many of my clients and students are having sleep trouble and other signs of depletion. And diagnoses that have the word fatigue in them and so on. And this is all a problem of depletion of Soma. And so if you were to take a meal as an example, most food from an Ayurvedic perspective should be mostly Soma with a dose of Agni. So for example, if you would never have if you were having a sweet potato with black pepper on it, would it be mostly black pepper or mostly sweet potato? Right? Silly question. Obviously, it's mostly sweet potato. It's mostly nourishment, but you don't want to have a plain sweet potato. You want some salt and pepper on it or some hot sauce if you're in my family. Okay, so you want some fire to make it delicious and enliven it and so on and make it digestible so that you can actually assimilate the nutrition, the nourishment of the potato, but you want it to be mostly Soma. And that's really how our lives should be, mostly nourished, mostly calm, grounded, having enough to go around, and then the activity is within that container of soma. Never so much fire that the ghee is all burned off. And that's the same with what we can rightly say that the kind of yoga that we all do and share with others is a soma form of yoga. It is mostly soma, and we're going to see how there is some fire contained within the soma, and sometimes we need to add a little more fire to the spinal release practice, which we're going to look at doing. But both need to be addressed and cared for, but the soma needs to be in greater amount. That's what we're going to look at, starting right now with Kurmasana, if you'd like to do that. You want to do some Kurmasana, those of you that have your yoga stuff? Unless there's any other questions. Okay, so we're going to do Kurmasana, the form of Kurmasana where you're leaning into a block, not leaning into a chair. Because, and I'm going to mute everybody, because I want to bring in movement. Bring some movement into the stillness so that we're bringing in the Agni element. And if you don't have your yoga stuff and you want to just watch and listen, that's fine too. You're going to have you do have a handout on the pose that I'm going to teach, the variation. Are we there? This is so cool. All right. So, seated on 2 or 3, maybe 4, maybe 1.5 blankets with your legs at a 45-degree angle and a block or some form of firm support between your legs. And you can sit up for you don't need to sit up and watch, actually. I think you'll all definitely be able to follow. And some of you have done this before. Okay, so you're going to start with your elbows locked straight, leaning into the block, neck and head hanging down, softening through your low spine, low belly, pubic bone. And so I'm going to talk about the Agni and Soma principles while you're in the pose. Just let the words I'm saying have their effect. This is being recorded so you can listen later. You are in a passive position in stillness. There's Soma in that. A grounded position makes this all Soma. But contained within that container of Soma is a process of release, what we can call purification. That letting go, that release, that transformational process that's happening is actually an Agni process. If you are letting go of something, that is Agni. Purifying is another word we would use to say letting go. Agni is purifying. So you are in a container of softening, stillness, Soma. Within that container is a purification process, a letting go process, which is Agni. And in addition, the location of that letting go process is the tailbone, which is the seat of fire in the spine. So this is already an Agni Soma practice. But we're going to bring in a micro flow movement to help call more Soma by refining and increasing the Agni through movement. So we're going to increase both the Agni and the Soma with a little bit of movement. So to do that, you're going to inhale And as you exhale, bend your elbows slightly, which will tip your torso down a little. And then as you inhale, straighten your arms again. And continue, exhale, bend. Inhale to straighten. And this can be a micro flow. You don't have to be going as low as you can go. You can be moving just an inch or two up and down. Every exhalation, you bend your elbows. And every inhalation, you straighten. The movement is very small, but your breaths are probably a little bit long, so the movement has to be very slow. The movement is Agni, but the slowness is Soma. Soma is slow. Exhaling as you bend and inhaling to straighten. And continue like that. You are kindling the fire a little bit. And as the fire refines, the Soma is better digested, becomes more luminous, more accessible. The next time your elbows are straight, you can stay there. And then you can come all the way up by putting your hands on your upper thighs and tipping up. And now we'll check in about the pose in a moment, but while you're there, I want to just bring in the next piece. So you're going to need 2 blocks because you're going to put a block on either side of your left leg. And you can guess we're going to do the same thing, but we're going to go side to side now. Do one side and then the other. Normally, I would teach just one of these unless I was working with advanced yogis like you all, in which case we could layer and do them both, which is what we're doing. So the blocks on either side of your left leg with your elbows locked straight. So you're leaning. There's still, the opposite sit bone is still on the blankets. Don't lift off, but there'll be more weight in the left sit bone, neck and head hanging down. Barbara, obviously your blocks will be pretty high. Okay, baby should like this. And so, inhale to prepare. And as you exhale, bend your elbows and tip down a little bit. And as you inhale, straighten. Exhale, bend. Inhale, straighten. Covering the same ground, back and forth. Moving at the pace of your breath. Refining both the Agni and the Soma with this slow movement. Exhaling down, inhaling up. The next time your elbows are straight, you can push into your thighs and come up and move the blocks over the other way, over the right leg. And the same thing, so leaning to that side. Neck and head softening down. Inhale to prepare. As you exhale, bend your elbows slightly. Inhale, straighten. Exhale, bend. Inhale, straighten. And you should feel that there's a change happening as you move in the pelvis. So the pelvis is being tipped into 2 different positions. And you're covering some different ground in there, down there in the tailbone and pelvis. Exhaling as you bend your elbows and inhaling to straighten. And then the next time that your elbows are straight, you can come up. And then come all the way up. And sit in any position that's comfortable for you. Let the effects continue. I'll unmute you. You do have a handout for this that's on this week's page, which I sent the link out for, but you don't have to look at it right now. You can look at it later. I just want you to know it's all there. A couple more things I have to say about it, but let me see if there's any questions first about that microflow in Kurmasana.
I was noticing that my breath kind of wanted to do the opposite. And I was thinking about it, and I was feeling like exhaling down. I mean, obviously you're losing space, so you're going to exhale and then you inhale as you come up because you're getting more space in the diaphragm. But then I was thinking about like Agni aspiring upwards, so it made me feel like I should be exhaling up because of that. So I was just noticing that, and yeah.
That's a penis umbilical cord problem.
Yeah.
But for purely anatomical reasons, as you said, you would, it's the same with cat-cow pose. I did cat-cow pose as part of my Soma sequence this morning in my own practice. And yeah, there's a thing there where I was doing the same thing. I was wanting to flip it when I was overthinking the Agni Soma principle. So you do what's best. We would say in Vastu, you do what's best locally. Don't think too vastly. So locally, in terms of your anatomy, that's the breath that's best, and don't wax too poetic about Agni and Soma and flip the breathing in the case of that pose. It's always advanced to coordinate breath with movement. Advanced meaning deeper, but one of the things I love about this, and a number of the things that I share with in terms of the Agni Soma principles, this pose I find makes Kurmasana more accessible to newcomers. And it's not so deep that it's going to send them into tons of rebound or relapse. It makes it accessible for both kinds of newcomers that we get. The people that are coming from other styles of yoga that are like, I don't feel anything in this pose and we're not doing anything. I don't get it. When they do this, it satisfies their desire to move and feel like they're doing something, and they can feel more happening when they do this. So it satisfies that. And then when they feel satisfied is Soma. When they are satisfied, they surrender and the Soma increases. And then they actually let go more because they're not going, their mind isn't going, what's happening? I don't get it. Okay. But it's also accessible to the more kind of hypomobile, stiff, never done yoga before. This pose is uncomfortable. Their knees are bending. They can't stay in it long just because it's uncomfortable for them. The movement actually makes this pose more comfortable for people that are otherwise uncomfortable in this pose. So I'm thinking of those, the guys whose knees are bending and they just look really awkward in Kurmasana. They're able to do this version of the pose and actually get some tailbone release out of it because they're kind of going in and out of it, in and out in such a way that they're massaging the tailbone release instead of being stagnant with the tailbone release. Questions about the pose?
Do you go ahead and bring them up on 4 if they can't on this one without the chair? Okay.
Totally. I find that most of the men are on 4 blankets.
Yeah.
And I just go ahead and tell when I have a group class, like, okay, the guys are going to be on, try 4. I just do 4.
Okay.
Yeah. And then obviously they need an extra block. And the sideline one, so when you do one leg at a time, that's also easier for those hypomobile people, which are often the men. they don't get so much of a problem of the knee bending because they're just doing one side. And so there's a little way for them to kind of sneak around the tension. Whereas when you're in the center line yoga movement, then it's a little more direct into the tailbone and it's not as easy for people. Okay, so this is one of these deeper but accessible to everyone poses. It's one of the strange things about our form of yoga is the advanced poses are often still very accessible to newcomers. It's not like we're standing them on their heads or something. It's advanced in terms of depth and yet very accessible. There was something else I wanted to say about, Kurmasana. In terms of Agni and Soma, it's an Agni pose, as I said, because it's tailbone, which is a seat of Agni. Because it's a release pose, we're purifying old patterns, old tensions, and so on. That's Agni. But you're staying still or you're moving slow in terms of this microflow, and that's Soma. And also, because of the head hanging down, what do you think a head hanging down is, Agni or Soma? Soma, surrender, right? So that bowing aspect of any forward bend is a Soma quality. Anytime you bow, you're in a surrender position. That's Soma. So it's such a lovely pose for both Agni and Soma for all of those reasons. Okay. All right. So let's lunge because you just did Kurmasana. So if you want to grab those blocks again, we're going to lunge and we're going to do a little micro flow in lunge pose as well. Let me ask Serene, Janice, and Jody, have you guys learned the head up and down in this pose?
I did. So yeah. I haven't done it.
Okay, so that's the one we're gonna do. Okay. Jody and Janice, you guys didn't do the head up and down thing? Okay, so let me demonstrate it. I know some of the others have because they did the Agni and Soma program with me. Kathy, did you do it? Head up and down?
I don't remember if we did it together. You're talking about in lunge?
Yeah, or maybe you did it, in a program.
In another setting.
Yeah, so I'm going to demonstrate this just so you can see. This is one that I usually demonstrate when I teach it. So we're going to lunge. Another time, if everybody wants, you could talk about belly over and ribs forward. We're doing it the contemplative practice way. I see value in both. I don't care which way you do it. I do a little of both in my practice, okay? And once you lunge, once we get in here, great. What you're gonna do is, I'll talk you through inhaling your head up. And then as you exhale, you let your head down. And then you're going to inhale your head up, but less high than before. And then exhale down. And we go about 6 times. Every time you inhale, you come up less high. Inhale up. Exhale down, and so on. So every time you come up a little higher, a little less high, sorry. And every time your head goes down, you let it go all the way down. But what I always demonstrate to students is don't just crick your neck in one spot here, okay? I want to see it like a serpent kind of going so that there's movement in all of the vertebrae as much as possible. And to do that, you might root or instigate the movement at the base of the neck between the shoulder blades. Okay, so it'll make more sense now when you give it a try. So come onto all fours and go ahead and get into lunge, however you prefer. Obviously, you want to be well aligned before you bring in the microflow movement here. So wrists aligned and ankle aligned and so on. And then do your best to instigate the movement at the base of your neck between the shoulder blades. That heart center is a seat of Soma. And you're going to roll up as you inhale. Roll your neck and head up till you're gazing straight ahead as you inhale. And as you exhale, let your neck and head come all the way down. And inhale up at the pace of your breath, but come up less high than before. And exhale all the way down. Softening down. Inhale up, less high than before. Here you're inhaling and aspiring the head up like Agni. Exhaling, surrendering Soma, softening down as you exhale. 2 or 3 more. Each inhale, come up less high than before. Okay, and then you can come on out when you're ready. Are there any questions before you do your other side? Okay. So you can go on in the other side. So you take your time to settle in, always be well aligned. You would, ideally get your students well aligned before you bring in the movement, and then inhale your head up till you're gazing straight ahead, and exhale your neck and head all the way down. Do this about 6 times. Inhale up, a little less high each time, instigating the movement between your shoulder blades or as low down as you can feel. Exhaling all the way down. And I find most people think they're coming up less high than before, but they're not. So really make sure that you are coming up less high each time. And feel your upper spine like a serpent. And you can come out when you're complete there. Barbara, were you able to lunge?
I was. It pulled a little bit on when my right leg was forward, but I was on 4 blocks under each hand, so.
Yeah. You're basically standing up. Okay, so questions about that pose, that variation? Yeah, Jody. It's so funny. You're not muted, but I can't hear you again. Maybe it just takes a minute.
Still can't hear me?
Oh, now I can.
Could you do it the other way and start out with a smaller movement and then increase the movement as you go? Or is there a specific reason why you go all the way and then you keep lessening the height?
I think you can, I don't see a problem with you. Go ahead and experiment with that. My sense is that for most students and clients who are less body aware and less open, the idea is that when you start with the full movement, you're massaging all of the vertebrae, and then you're helping them to be able to get more and more refined movement toward the upper portion of the neck where people are so tight and stuck. So if you start with that, you just may not get as much moving in that upper portion of the neck that we're kind of zeroing in on as we're refining to a smaller movement. The other thing from the Agni Soma perspective is we're starting with a bigger movement that's more Agni, and then we're slowing it down. Because of course, and this I didn't say to you, but I always point it out to the students when I teach this, the distance, okay, is getting less each time, but the breaths are not getting shorter. So the movement gets slower. So by the time they're at the 5th and 6th one, the movement is so excruciatingly slow. I mean, it's incredibly slow because you're just moving this teeny bit, but the length of the breath is the same because you're coordinating the breath with the movement. So that in and of itself is kind of, it takes them starting big and then refining to even be comfortable with how would I make my movement that small? Does that make sense? But in terms of, release benefit, go ahead and try for yourself doing it the other, reversing it and see what happens. I've never done that myself. Any other questions?
Hiya.
Yes, I hear you.
When the head's going up and down, I kind of have this tendency to want to kind of, well, like, I don't know if you can see me.
I can't. Your video is off.
Oh, I wonder why that is. I don't know if you can. Anyway, I kind of feel like my head kind of wants to do this kind of serpentine movement, and I don't know, almost kind of like it's going down and it's kind of coming up, but I'm not sure if I'm supposed to be doing that or not. I don't know how I can get you to see me. So
your head or your neck?
Well, kind of the head and the neck. I kind of feel like it wants to like go down and kind of come up like a curve or like an S or something.
That's what I was saying. Yeah, that's fine.
Wow. Okay.
Totally.
And I wasn't sure if I was.
That's how the body moves, really, right? That's how the spine really does move.
Okay.
Because it's a series of your vertebrae are a series of joints. So
okay.
Yeah. I mean, I can't see. So sometime you can show me. Maybe next time we'll have a video on it. So
to turn the camera on.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Unless your camera's leaning into a block like Julie's was before.
Well,
and then there was something else I was going to, the other thing, which I didn't point out, there's a lot of mechanics to get through when you teach this. But the other thing is, of course, because your spine is a series of joints, though we're focusing on increasing the upper spinal release, what do you think happens to the lower spine and to the hips and pelvis as you're getting all of that release?
The drops
down. We're getting a trickle down effect, literally, or a ripple effect. So you can also point out to people once they do this that their hips have often sunk lower, and that they can allow that to happen because they've, of course, decompressed the whole length of the spine by decompressing the upper spine. And with all of these kinds of adding in these movement variations, this micro flow, as some of you know already, what that does is it's making the pose more entertaining. And so it's increasing the length of time that students are staying in the pose. So you're deepening the pose, not only with the movement, with coordinating breath with movement, but also because the length of the pose is just much longer. Yeah, Andrea.
I have one woman who, because of a neck trauma, is not able to do lunge. She can only do chair lunge. Is there any way to do a part of this kind of a neck flow in a chair lunge, or is that just not accessible at all?
I wouldn't do that with her. Were you with me when we did the hold their head?
Yes, but see, she can't put her weight on her arms.
I see.
So she can't do the floor lunge. She can only do that's the only.
No, I think the best thing for her to get something similar out of this, it's not movement based, would be Kurmasana with the head leaning in the chair or in the blankets. Can she do that? Can she hang her head that much?
Yeah, she can put her head. Yeah.
Oh, it's
no,
the arms,
it's not,
right.
Yeah, it's not the position of her head. It's the arms. She
right.
can't bear weight. She can't hold herself up on her arms.
Yeah, I would never hang her head in the chair lunge because the rest of the pose doesn't have enough stability. So she would just tighten her lower spine. Okay. Anytime you're hanging the head, you want the rest of the body to be relatively stable. So like we wouldn't do it in Tadasana, for example, because this person's going to fall over and they'd have to tighten to not fall over. Okay. She could do it in a seated pose if she had a good, well-propped Sukhasana or Svastikasana. She could do that. That would be fine. Because we do like a chin lock and a version of the head going back in Sukhasana safely in that seated position. Okay. I'll talk about the seated positions next time. Make a note to do that. So I want to take you through, can we do 2 more poses? Yeah, because I said we'd go till 4:15. If you have to hang up, you can, but I want to take you, I'm going to try to get you through 2 more things. Okay. So the first, bye. Hi, bye. The first is going to be Vidalasana. Let's see here. Yeah, good. Okay. I'm going to take us through cat-cow pose. We'll do Vidalasana next week. Yeah, or cat stretch next week. So cat-cow pose. Of course, quick reminder, most of you know this really well, but with cat-cow, we're always sequencing the spine from the tailbone up, whether you're going into cat or cow pose. Bring my microphone with me. Okay. And so always starting in cat and ending in cat. And what I want to do with you in this is we're going to do a little movement in it. So once we go, we're just going to go back and forth 1 or 2 times. Inhaling up, exhaling into cat, sequencing the spine and moving at the pace of your breath. So inhaling to come up and exhaling to come down. And then once you're down, we're going to go side to side a little bit. So you're going to inhale to one side with the spine rounded and exhale to the other side with the spine rounded, giving a kind of a slinky, snaky effect to the spine by virtue of that movement. Okay, and then you'll come out, I'll talk you through all that, then you'll come out and go into child's pose, or if you can't do child's pose, you can lie on your back and do reclined child's pose. Okay, so come onto all fours. And go ahead and start with your spine rounded like a cat, stretching her back toward the full moon, which is a form of Soma. And remember, in cat, you get the most out of this by pushing into your toes, knees, and hands and pulling your belly button in toward your spine at half strength. And then when you're ready, you're going to instigate the movement into cow on an inhalation. As you inhale, tip your tail up and move vertebra by vertebra. As you inhale, neck and head up last. Get the space between your shoulder blades to move. And then you're going to exhale back into cat. Keep your head up. Keep your head up as you move the whole length of the spine. The head comes down last. Go back and forth one more time. Inhaling into cow, moving vertebra by vertebra. You have 7 neck vertebrae, so see if you can get them to move individually. And exhale back into cat. Keep that head up until you get through the neck. And then once you're in cat, so if you're still moving, that's fine. Once you're in cat, keep pressing your toes, knees, and hands into the floor and pull your navel in towards your spine. And then you're going to inhale as you tip to one side and exhale as you tip the other way. And you don't have to go really far. It's a micro flow. You want to keep some weight on the other side. So you inhale, tip to one side. Exhale, go the other way. The more micro this movement is, the more internal benefit you may get. And if it's a small movement, it's got to be slow because you're moving at the pace of your breath a short distance. And see if you can feel a kind of a rippling, snaking effect through the length of your spine as you do this. You could do one or two more side to side. And then end in the center line. And you can come on out when you're ready, untuck your toes, walk your toes and knees together, sink your hips back. There's that bulldog. Rest in child's pose. Let the effects continue. When you're ready, you can come on up. And any questions about that one? Pretty straightforward. Anyone feel that slinky, snaking, serpentine effect on the spine?
Yes. Pretty cool.
Pretty cool. And the spine is the conduit of both fire and Soma. So again, it's another reason why the Shri practice is such an Agni Soma practice. And so we're focusing even more on the movement, the flow in that, in the spine. Okay, we're gonna do one more pose.
Can I just ask, Kaya?
Sure.
Did you tell us to tuck the toes or to keep the toes untucked?
Tuck the toes, which will help you engage the leg muscles. There are forms of yoga most forms of yoga do this pose with the toenails on the floor, which is so funny because they're always activating everything, fingertips. And then when it comes to this, they got the toenails on the floor. I don't get it. So yeah, tuck the toes because that's how you can use leg strength in order to increase the movement of the spine as you move into cat.
I think Barbara put a question. Barbara wrote a question in.
Oh, Barbie, let me see.
Or Barb, I don't know.
Oh, chat.
A chat.
I think I lost my mic. In pregnancy? Oh, I lost my mic in pregnancy. I lost my mic in pregnancy. Is it okay to have the knees wider in cat? Everything's wider in pregnancy. So your knees are definitely going to be wider. And also in pregnancy, you want to be really aware as your belly is getting bigger, not to overarch through the waist. So if you keep doing this pose, she's 6 weeks away from her due date, so she's getting pretty close. In cow pose, you don't want to do a big arch because the weight of the belly is really pulling on the lumbar spine, so you're kind of neutral. Take that mic off if it's not working. You don't have to wear that thing, your headgear. Belly doesn't fit comfortably with the knees aligned. Yeah, you're going to make room for, like with all the poses, you're making room for the belly. Okay. We're all getting the Soma of the pregnancy, having a pregnant mama in the group. It's like extra Soma. Okay, so I'd like us to do Paschimottanasana to end. And then if you hang up, when you hang up after we do this pose, do a lunge because we've done a few forward bends. So you'll lunge again before you move on with your day, ideally, after we do Paschimottanasana. We're going to do blade as well. We'll do blades back after Paschimottanasana. So go ahead and get yourself on 2, 3. If there were men in the room, we would say maybe they're going up to 4 for this one, like with Karmasana. And then we're going to take a little extra time with rolling up. And so because of that, you may want to have blocks on either side of your legs. If you find that pushing yourself up by pushing into your thighs puts a lot of pressure on your knees, then go ahead and have blocks on either side of your extended legs. Okay. And Barbara, you can widen your legs for this if you want, or just don't go down super far. Okay, legs extended, heels touching or up to 1 inch apart. Barbara, your legs can go wider than that, as I said. Blocks, if you'd like them, on either side of your extended legs to use for pushing up. And then you're going to inhale to prepare. As you exhale, let your neck and head soften down. That's a surrender Soma position. Inhale. Exhale, let your shoulders soften down. Continue like that, pausing as you inhale, slumping down as you exhale into a surrendered position. Moving at the pace of your breath. And if you'd like, we're doing Paschimottanasana Ragdoll, Andrea, rolling down. If you'd like, you can turn your palms up toward the ceiling. This is a hand mudra of surrender. So instead of having your palms down as you're rolling down, you can turn your palms up. Every time you exhale, slump down a little bit more. And then once you've gone as far as you go, you'll start the rolling up, but don't roll up yet because I'm going to explain what we're going to do. The rolling up, you're going to go slower. You're going to roll up 2 vertebrae and then down 1. And you're just kind of guessing if you can't feel every single vertebra. Pushing into your hands, roll up 2, down 1, up 2, and down 1. And continue like that. This is a lot of micro movements. Right now, you're not coordinating this particular movement with breath. Though you could, if you want to go advanced, you can inhale the up 2 and exhale the down 1, and then it'll be even slower. Inhaling up 2, exhaling down 1. Otherwise, don't worry about the breath. Up 2 and down 1. Taking your time. When you've come all the way up, once you've come all the way up, you can sit in a cross-legged position or in any position that's comfortable and let the effects continue. Andrea, I see. I'm just going to let everybody have a moment to come all the way up. When you've come all the way up, you can also do your own, well, let me talk you all through Blade, actually. Andrea, what's your question?
I'm sorry, I missed the beginning and I don't do a lot of ragdoll. How many blankets am I supposed to be sitting on?
High enough that when your legs are extended and your heels are close together, you don't have a bend in your knees or you don't feel too slumpy in the sacrum. So 2 to 3 works for most.
So about the same as Karmasana then?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. That's what
sometimes lower than Karmasana, but about the same. So we're going to do blade pose, blades back, and I'm going to reverse the breath relative to the way that most of you do it. Some of you may do it this way, okay? So instead of exhaling to come back, we're gonna inhale back, all right? So you're gonna bring your arms up and turn your palms up and make fists. Shrug your shoulders up and slide them down. Soft belly, don't arch your waist. The movement's up in the upper spine. Inhale to prepare. Still preparing as you exhale. And then as you inhale, bring your shoulder blades back. Exhale as you bend your elbows. Inhale as you squeeze your elbows and shoulder blades together. Soften your hip creases, your belly. Don't arch your waist. Squeeze those rhomboid muscles together. Then you can bring your arms down. So that version of Paschimottanasana obviously slows down the movement the more. So if you're coordinating it with breath, you do have that handout in the packet of handouts for this program. You are deepening the pose by slowing it down and by giving these little more subtle movements to the vertebrae. You are massaging the conduit of Agni and Soma while you are in a Soma position, because you are in a forward bend, which is a Soma surrender position. Okay. But you're moving from tail to top, which is the direction of Agni. So as Jody asked earlier, you know, most things are a mix of the two. So you can see layer upon layer how everything is a mix of both Agni and Soma. And one of the homework pieces for you this week, I'm thinking of now, I'll add it to the page as a reminder, is to just notice and maybe even journal a little bit in your daily life this week, where you see Agni and Soma at play as these cosmic consorts. One that just came to me as I was teaching is speech is Agni. Every time you talk, that's an Agni activity because you're expressing, you are doing, you're creating sound. So the more I talk, the more I need to drink water, Soma. Have to bring in the Soma element, the more so because of utilizing more fire. I'm burning up my inner Soma and I have to replenish the Soma by continually drinking water, which is Soma. Okay. So I'm going to do a prayer, but I'll stay on a little bit if anybody has questions. And you all should have the link to this week's program. You'll be utilizing the poses that we just did as a daily practice, along with some lifestyle self-care practices and this extra bonus idea of noticing Agni and Soma in your life, which you probably would do having taken this class anyway. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Okay, Soma bunch. If you have to go, I'll see you next time. If you want to stay, if you have a question, then you can stay. I'm unmuting all of you. That way you can say goodbye if you're jumping off, and you can ask a question if you have a question.
I have to go, but thank you, Kaya. It's good to see you.
Next time.
Thank you, Kaya.
Bye.
Thank you, Kaya, so much.
Bye, Julie.
Bye.
So Kaya, do you have any recommendations for the sleep? Like if we're not
Sleeping.
Yeah.
Right. So one thing about melatonin is, I don't know how much you know about it. Melatonin helps with with getting you aligned with the circadian cycle. It's not a sleep inducer. So it'll help you sleep at the right time. It kind of helps you catch the sleep train. Okay. If that makes any sense. So if you take it too late, if you've already missed the sleep train, it's not going to do anything for you. So you might try taking the melatonin earlier, like 9 o'clock.
Yep. Okay.
Even 8:30, and then really like pay attention. For me, I definitely could sleep at about 8 o'clock every night, and I skip the sleep train because that's when I'm like, my kids are finally asleep, and I'm like, ah! So, but I'm like, oh, I'm yawning. Ah! And so, really pay attention to when that sleep train's coming through. And then, you might take the melatonin closer to like 8:30 and see if that helps. But the other thing is, there's so many things with sleep. You can try doing like the whole warm milk, cardamom warm milk before bed along with your melatonin, sort of like drug yourself to sleep naturally. Jutamumsi, which is a nervine herb which calms vata.
It makes me hyper.
Okay. That's the opposite. Can I ask, do you know if you have you ever been diagnosed ADD or ADHD?
Oh yeah. But I haven't always had a sleep issue. Like I've had it in my 20s and now it's resurfaced now in my
right, but I'm asking you about the ADHD.
Yeah.
You do, okay. Yeah. So I don't know if you know this about that diagnosis, but often stimulants are calming and calming nervines are stimulating.
That's right. I forgot.
That's why I'm asking, because you said that herb stimulates you. So go ahead and have a latte before bed with your melatonin. Michael has that too, and it doesn't affect him now, but in the same way. But we used to like go out before bed, and I would get a chamomile tea with soy milk, and he would get a latte, and we'd go home and like both crash because he has the same. So don't do Jutamumsi. The melatonin though should be fine because it's not a nervine. Like I said, it's just to help you catch the sleep train aligned with your circadian cycle, and the same with like milk with spices and so on. The other thing is though, if you're exhausted, that will make it hard for you to sleep because you need enough energy for your physiology to put you to sleep.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay.
So you have to really watch your exhaustion levels, your depletion levels. Do more of the Soma Nidra. That might help you fall asleep. I mean, a couple people who've been doing it have said that they've gotten really good sleep after, a couple weeks of not being able to sleep well.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's the waking. So then like if I fall asleep by 10:30, I wake up at midnight.
Yeah, and the melatonin won't help with that because again, it's just to help you fall asleep. It's not going to help you stay asleep.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, there's more that could be looked at. When you wake up, are you worrying or strategizing or hungry or digesting or
hot?
No.
I'm hot.
Hot.
I'm sweating, I'm hot, and I'm waking up like every 2 or 3 hours with this, and I'm just played around. We've got 3 fans on me in the bed.
It's vata. It's vata. Yeah. Even though it's heat, it's vata because it's frequent. It's every couple hours, and vata is hard to tie down. She just keeps bugging you. She's like, wake up now, go to sleep, wake up again, go to sleep. That's vata.
Yeah.
So the fans probably aren't really they'll help superficially with the heat, but then you have cold air blowing on you, which is increasing your vata. So some things already about getting your vata down. I would just take a couple weeks and cut out everything raw, be really careful about your food combining, do everything in the book to calm vata. Oil massage your feet because vata's rising up and then it's fanning that flame. It's vata pushing the heat up. So the symptom feels heat, pitta, but the cause is vata.
Okay.
So everything you know about calming vata, hydration, oleation, cooked food, no raw, no cold, oiling your feet, and calming essential oils could help, like rose and saffron and all calming, grounding, vata balancing without being overheating. That's why I'm thinking of rose and chamomile and things like that, because they're calming without being heating.
Okay.
And try that.
Okay.
Yeah. And
So
I'm hoping the other Soma things will help.
Maybe I should have a cooling drink before bed.
Well, milk is cooling.
I don't do milk. I can't do milk.
Right. That's true. So, but even if it was like a rice milk, like rice is a cooling thing.
Okay.
It could be room temperature. It doesn't have to be a hot thing. But I think that's why I was thinking cardamom too, because cardamom is a cooling digestive. So it's not going to increase the heat. You could do a cold brewed mint. Get fresh mint leaves and keep them in like a glass vessel in your fridge in filtered water and let it cold brew, or brew it hot, pour hot water over it and then keep it in the fridge and then sip of that.
Okay.
Because that's not like even cautious to tell you to do chamomile because I'm afraid it might stimulate you, like Jadamumsy stimulates you, but mint is neutral. It's not going to stimulate you or the opposite.
Vetiver works sometimes. I use that on my feet.
You do. I love vetiver. That's good.
That helps me fall asleep sometimes.
So try that too. You're going to just like do everything because I think it's vata and depletion.
Yeah.
So everything you can do.
Very regular schedule and do everything. I don't eat anything raw really at all. I don't think. Every once in a while, a salad, but I don't know.
Which way is your head facing in the bed? Like, which way does the head of the bed point in terms of the cardinal directions, north, south?
I'm thinking. Wait, I always get confused. They believe it's north, maybe a little northwest.
So if you can flip your bed to be west or south. Okay. Even just flip your head for a couple nights.
And see.
Yeah. Keep the bed where it is, but put your head where your feet are and see if that helps. South would be best.
Okay.
Otherwise, west, second best. West, second best. And then call me in the morning. I want to know how that goes. Okay. Barbie and Jen, did you guys have?
Thank you.
I had a question. If this is relevant here, if not, just let me know. So my dad is 95 and he's the one I gave like 90 embodiment sessions to, like 3 series of overlaps of 10, 10, 10 a few years ago. Had, huge shifts in him. And now he's kind of declining and he kind of has this up and down. And I gave him your protocol for embodiment. I've done it 2 days in a row now. And his oxygen levels have been an issue for him. And they went up after embodiment. Last night they were like up to 95, and which is good. And so my question is, he's still very much interested in life and wanting to be able to walk and go to his little swimming classes, and he lives with my sister. So I'm not hearing him say, I'm done by any means. So in terms of giving him embodiment, do you think if I give him overlap 10, 10, 10, or I was thinking 5, 5, 5, and I'm just curious if you have an opinion. I think depletion is obviously an issue for him and his breathing, and he rallies and then he kind of goes down and he rallies.
Yeah, I mean, I hear what you're saying, that he's still wanting to be amongst the living and be engaged in life. And yet, if he really is declining, my concern is the combination of his attachment to the body with your attachment to his body,
right,
and to having a dad. With embodiment, you're doing it for him.
Yes.
And this is a time of life when he should be becoming ever less attached to the body, so that when it is time, not saying it's time now, but that when it is time, he can do it with grace.
Yes.
With Soma, with allowance, as opposed to with resistance. And so it feels to me that at a certain point, embodiment is in resistance.
Yes.
Whereas if you teach him to meditate, or if he listens to the Soma recording, or if you teach him one or two poses, it's a little bit more incumbent upon him to do it. And when he doesn't want to do it anymore, he'll stop. And as long as he wants to do it, then he's engaging in the process. Meditation is good because that's preparation for the big meditation.
Right. Oh, and I think he's willing to do poses, and my sister goes to yoga classes all the time, so she can actually do the poses with him, and I've taught him the poses, and so maybe he's kind of gotten a little bit of an interest with the embodiment, and so that if I can step back and try to get him to do some of the poses, and if he's not willing to do that, maybe stepping back a little bit.
And actually you just have to be really aware of, at what point do you cross the line? If, let's say, he's doing poses regularly, he's kind of doing his part, then you could keep doing embodiment. If there's a certain point where he's like, I don't have the energy to do poses, can you just fix me? Then we're going like, okay, then let's do some meditation or just some yoga nidra instead.
Right. That makes sense.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
You're a good daughter.
I try.
Jen, are you sticking around for a question or hanging?
He's muted.
Hanging in the Soma lounge.
Thank you so much for the class.
Thank you, Kaya.
You're welcome. Good to see all those faces.
So fun.
All right. I'll see you next time.
Okay. Bye-bye.